Are you brave enough to face who you really are? Nietzsche and forbidden psychology. What if everything you think you are is just a mask? A mask carefully crafted by fear, by trauma, by society, and behind it, a truth so powerful it could either free you or destroy your illusions forever. Nietzsche didn't just write about truth. He ripped the human soul open to expose it. And today, you're about to face a version of yourself you've been running from your whole life. In this video, we're diving into forbidden psychology, the raw, uncomfortable truths that traditional psychology dares not touch. With Nietzsche as our guide, we'll explore the hidden parts of your psyche that most people are terrified to confront. But if you're brave enough, this journey could ignite a transformation so profound, you'll never see yourself the same way again. Before we start, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel, because we're not here for superficial content. We're here to go deep. And if you're on this path, it means you're ready to face what most people avoid. So, are you really ready? Topic 1: The illusion of identity. You're not who you think you are. Since childhood, you've been conditioned to believe you are a fixed identity, your name, your roles, your habits. But what if that's just the surface layer of something much deeper, more chaotic, more real? Nietzsche warned us, every profound spirit needs a mask. Most people never realize how many masks they wear to survive in society. You've become a master of pretending, even to yourself. The moment you say, "This is who I am," you begin to limit yourself. That phrase becomes a psychological cage, comfortable, familiar, but ultimately restrictive. Your identity isn't a truth you've uncovered, it's a script you've memorized. And most of it was written by others, parents, teachers, social norms, long before you even questioned it. But if you stripped away the labels, the achievements, the reputation, who would be left standing? Would you even recognize that person? This is where Nietzsche's idea of becoming challenges everything. He didn't see identity as something fixed, but as a fluid, ever-changing process. The self, for him, was a constant unfolding. Unfortunately, most people fear becoming. They seek belonging instead. And to belong, they sacrifice authenticity at the altar of acceptance. Yet deep within you, there's a version untouched by rules or expectations. A raw, instinctive self, wild, intuitive, electric, waiting to emerge. While mainstream psychology often teaches coping, Nietzsche demands confrontation. You're not here to soothe your ego, you're here to dissolve it and meet what lies beneath. After all, you've spent your life building a persona to avoid pain. But in doing so, you've also kept your own power locked away. Pain, paradoxically, is the door you must walk through to reclaim it. Every time you say, "That's just how I am," you reinforce the illusion. You close the door to evolution and cling to a version of yourself that may no longer serve you. Of course, your ego will resist this. It will scream in defense. But the ego isn't your essence, it's your armor, forged in fear. Behind that armor lies a truth that doesn't crave approval. It demands expression. And expression often looks chaotic, unpredictable, but also deeply liberating. If these words disturb you, that's a good sign. That discomfort is the friction of transformation. It means your mask is beginning to crack. So once again, the question remains, are you brave enough to meet the version of yourself you've buried under years of roles, masks, and fear? Topic 2: The shadow self. What you repress controls you. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Nietzsche lived it. Those dark, uncomfortable parts of your psyche, the anger, envy, lust, rage, are not your enemies. They are, in fact, fragments of your dormant power. From an early age, you were taught to silence them. Be nice. Be polite. Don't feel that. But suppressed energy never disappears. It mutates. It begins to twist itself through your behavior, slipping through the cracks of your conscious mind. And the more you push it down, the more control it gains. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He believed that moral codes weren't virtues, but tools of control, masks imposed by the weak to shackle the strong. What you repress becomes your shadow, It festers in the dark, shaping your reactions, influencing your decisions, poisoning your relationship. Consider the moments when you lashed out unexpectedly or sabotaged your own goals. That wasn't random, it was the shadow whispering or sometimes screaming. But this darkness isn't a flaw. It's potential energy waiting to be integrated. Society wants you sanitized. Nietzsche wants you whole. And to become whole, you must confront what you've tried to bury. You must look directly into the parts you find shameful, grotesque, even terrifying. The first reaction is always denial. Then comes guilt. Then shame. But beyond that lies transformation, because inside the shadow lives your fire. It's in the shadow that you find your unapologetic drive, your instinctual power, your raw truth. But you'll only access it if you're willing to feel the burn. Ironically, the more pure a person seems, the more they're usually repressing. That darkness leaks out in subtle forms: manipulation, addiction, passive aggression. The integration of the shadow isn't romantic. It's raw. It's messy. But it's the only path to real freedom, the kind that isn't dependent on external validation. You can't master your life while running from your own depth. The demon you avoid is often the ally you need. Power comes not from avoiding your shadow, but from dancing with it, learning its rhythm, owning its strength, transcending its grip. So what are you still hiding from yourself? That's where your transformation begins. Topic 3: The Will to Power. You are not meant to be passive. Nietzsche's idea of the will to power is often misunderstood. It's not about domination over others. It's about rising above your own internal limitations. At your core, you weren't made to obey. You were born to influence, create, challenge, and shape the world, not with brute force, but with presence and authenticity. Yet society trained you otherwise. You were molded to be agreeable, to follow rules, to seek approval. And in each act of obedience, a fragment of your essence was dimmed. The will to power, in contrast, is about expansion. It's that inner surge urging you to become more than what others expect you to be. This force isn't rooted in arrogance, it's rooted in evolution. It whispers every time you feel constrained, every time you hunger for more than comfort. But power requires awareness. Without self-knowledge, power corrupts. That's why Nietzsche stressed the importance of self-conquest before external conquest. Most people fear their own potential. They fear what might happen if they stop conforming, stop apologizing, stop playing small. But your soul didn't come here for safety. It came to evolve. And evolution always demands discomfort, resistance, and risk. Real power isn't about controlling others. It's about taking full responsibility for your life, your path, and your impact. And to do that, you must first reclaim your voice, your instincts, your inner authority, buried under layers of cultural programming. Of course, this path is not easy. It demands sacrifice, of comfort, of certainty, of approval. But what you lose externally, you gain internally. History's greatest minds didn't play it safe. They disrupted, they challenged, they broke rules. Because they understood, comfort is a slow death. You weren't meant to survive quietly. You were meant to roar from within. The will to power is the roar you've been suppressing. No one will hand you permission to evolve. You must claim it. You must ignite it. You must become it. So the question is no longer whether you want power, it's whether you're willing to carry the weight that comes with it. Topic 4: Emotional Repression. How feelings become your inner jailers. In the modern world, emotions are treated like disruptions, things to be controlled, numbed, or dismissed. You're taught to smile when you want to scream, to stay calm when your soul is burning, to be rational at all costs. But Nietzsche saw something entirely different. He didn't view emotions as weaknesses, but as messages, raw, untamed signals from the soul, demanding attention and transformation. Yet society demands emotional discipline, not emotional depth. You learn early on to suppress your sadness, deny your anger, and mute your joy. And what happens when emotions are silenced? They mutate into symptoms: anxiety, numbness, emotional fatigue. Behind many cases of apathy lies a grief never expressed. Behind many control issues, a buried terror of chaos. What you repress emotionally doesn't die. It becomes a ghost that haunts your inner world. And these ghosts begin to shape your behavior silently. You start reacting instead of responding. You say yes when your entire being screams no. You fake contentment and your soul begins to rot from the inside. Nietzsche's philosophy invites you to go deeper, to feel radically, not recklessly. To let emotion be not a cage, but a compass. But this path is terrifying, because it means opening wounds you've sealed long ago. It means facing the sorrow, rage, or despair you were never allowed to feel fully. Most people prefer distraction over depth. They drown in entertainment, substances, shallow conversations, anything to avoid the emotional reckoning awaiting within. Yet your greatest clarity often comes after the emotional storm. You must feel it to free it. Pain is not the enemy, it's the process. The truth is, healing doesn't come from suppressing emotion, it comes from transmuting it. And to transmute, you must first let it burn through you. There will be tears you never cried, screams you never released, laughter you never allowed, all waiting to be liberated. The question isn't whether you're emotional, it's whether you're emotionally imprisoned. And every time you suppress, you reinforce the bars of that prison. So Nietzsche doesn't offer you comfort, he offers you confrontation. Feel deeply, burn clearly, live fully. That's where the real power lies. And if you truly want to discover who you are, you must ask, what feeling have I buried so deeply that I've forgotten it ever existed? Because only when you unlock that emotional truth can your inner voice finally speak with strength, purity, and power. Topic 5: The Herd Mentality. How Society Keeps You Spiritually Small. There's a reason Nietzsche feared the herd. Not because people are inherently evil, but because the collective often chooses comfort over truth, and conformity over courage. From the moment you're born, the herd begins its training. You're rewarded when you follow, punished when you question. You're told what to believe, what to desire, what success looks like, and you call it freedom. But it's not freedom. It's programming. And the more you follow without questioning, the more you dissolve into mediocrity, one more voice in the crowd, echoing ideas that aren't your own. Nietzsche saw this as spiritual decay. He called it slave morality, a system where obedience is considered virtue and rebellion is labeled sin. The herd doesn't want you awakened. It wants you predictable, because a conscious individual is dangerous, unruly, creative, impossible to control. You've been told that belonging is safety. But often, belonging is spiritual suffocation. You shrink yourself to fit in, and your truth becomes a whisper beneath layers of social expectation. And here's the irony: the more you try to be accepted, the more disconnected you feel. Because you weren't born to be a replica, you were born to be a force. But breaking away from the herd isn't glamorous. It's lonely. It's confusing. You'll be mocked, misunderstood, even attacked. That's the cost of authenticity. Yet the greatest minds in history didn't follow. They diverged. They walked into solitude, into silence, into self-inquiry, and returned with wisdom. Nietzsche's call is simple, yet terrifying. Abandon the comfort of the crowd and walk toward the uncomfortable freedom of your own truth. And yes, it will feel like death at first. The death of old identities, fake relationships, empty ambitions. But what dies wasn't you, it was the mask you wore for them. You must choose, approval or authenticity. One feeds the ego, the other liberates the soul. Society will always try to pull you back into sameness. But your spirit was built for elevation, not imitation. And every time you silence your truth to blend in, you betray your potential. Every time you follow blindly, you bury your brilliance. So ask yourself honestly, are you living a life you chose or one that was chosen for you? Because the moment you stop following the herd, you stop walking in circles, and start ascending toward something real. Topic 6: Radical Responsibility. The power you've been afraid to claim. One of the most uncomfortable truths Nietzsche forces us to confront is that you are responsible for your own suffering, not always for what happened to you, but for how you respond, how you integrate, and what you become from it. This idea is not meant to blame you, it's meant to empower you. Because as long as you believe your life is the fault of others, you surrender your ability to change it. Modern society encourages victimhood because it removes responsibility. It's easier to point fingers than to face the mirror. But in doing so, you hand over your power to external forces. Nietzsche's path is brutal, but liberating. He urges you to stop waiting for saviors, for approval, for the perfect moment. No one is coming to save you. You are the one you've been waiting for. Responsibility doesn't mean guilt. It means responsibility. The ability to respond consciously to your own life, not react like a programmed machine. And yet, most people fear this kind of power. Because radical responsibility also means radical honesty. You can no longer hide behind excuses, behind your past, behind the comforting narratives of limitation. Taking ownership of your inner world means owning your thoughts, your patterns, your reactions. It means recognizing the ways you betray yourself daily, through procrastination, through self-doubt, through sabotage disguised as humility. But once you take full responsibility, everything changes. You stop blaming your upbringing, your partner, your boss, the system. You reclaim the steering wheel of your life. There's nothing more powerful than a person who no longer blames. That person becomes unstoppable, unpredictable, unshakable. Of course, this path is lonely at first. Because when you stop complaining, you stop relating to people who only know how to suffer out loud. But eventually, you begin to attract those who also take responsibility for their evolution. And together, you rise, without noise, without drama, without need for validation. Nietzsche invites you to own your chaos, not curse it. To see in every obstacle a mirror, in every wound a teacher, in every mistake a lesson sculpted for your becoming. So ask yourself, what have I been avoiding taking responsibility for? Where in my life am I still pretending to be powerless? The answers may sting, but they will also set you free. Because the moment you own everything, no one can take anything from you. And that, Nietzsche would say, is the beginning of true freedom, not the absence of pain, but the mastery of your response to it. Topic 7: Becoming the Übermensch. The sacred duty of self-transcendence. All of Nietzsche's philosophy points toward one ultimate goal: the birth of the Übermensch, the higher human, the one who dares to transcend all imposed meaning and create his own. This idea is often misunderstood. The Übermensch isn't a tyrant. It's not about ego inflation or domination. It's about spiritual evolution, a human being who refuses mediocrity and lives from a place of inner sovereignty. To become that, you must first destroy the old scaffolding, the borrowed beliefs, the inherited morality, the recycled goals. You must burn the script and write your own. And that requires courage. Because nothing is more terrifying than standing in the empty space where old identities once stood. But it's also the space where true creation begins. The Übermensch is not created in comfort. He's forged in fire, in solitude, in silence, in the unbearable confrontation with his own soul. He doesn't seek meaning from outside. He creates it. He doesn't ask, "What is the purpose of life?" He answers, "What purpose am I choosing to give it?" This is not a path of arrogance, it's a path of sacred responsibility. Because when you become conscious, you are no longer just living for yourself. You become a symbol, a torch, a disruption to the sleepwalkers around you. But this journey is not for everyone. Most people will cling to their script. They'll ridicule your path. They'll try to drag you back into the herd. You must resist, not through force but through presence, through the quiet radiance of a life lived on your own terms. The Übermensch doesn't boast. He embodies. He doesn't shout. He becomes. And that embodiment is the most subversive act in a world addicted to noise and imitation. Your life becomes your philosophy. Your choices become your rebellion. Your energy becomes your message. So ask yourself, am I still trying to fit in, or am I becoming the higher version of myself that this world desperately needs? This is the call Nietzsche leaves echoing in your mind, not just to awaken, but to ascend. Not just to reflect, but to recreate. Because in the end, the greatest act of revolution is self-transcendence. And the greatest tragedy is dying without ever becoming who you were meant to be. So stand tall in your truth, walk fiercely in your becoming, and let your very existence be the disruption this world was never prepared for. Now you know, most people spend their entire lives running from themselves. But you had the courage to stop, to listen, to feel, to look in the mirror without filters and ask the question that few dare to confront. Who am I beneath all of this? If you've come this far, it means something in you is awakening, a fire that refuses to be dimmed by conformity, fear, or illusion. Nietzsche didn't offer comfort, he offered liberation. A path not for the weak, but for the fierce. A journey into your depths, where you stop outsourcing your truth and begin to embody it fully. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's lonely at times. But it's also sacred. Because in this world of copies, becoming your authentic self is a revolutionary act. If this message stirred something deep inside you, honor that feeling. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who's ready to walk this path too. And now, tell me in the comments, which part of you are you finally ready to face? Let's start a conversation that matters, because your transformation begins the moment you stop hiding.